I believe that the issues confronting us cross party lines. Well, I think it's time we ask ourselves if we still know the freedoms that were intended for us by the Founding Fathers. If we lose freedom here, there's no place to escape to. This is the last stand on earth. You and I are told increasingly we have to choose between a left or right. Well, I'd like to suggest there is no such thing as a left or right. There's only an up or down. Those who would trade our freedom for security have embarked on this downward course. And this idea that government is beholden to the people, that it has no other source of power except the sovereign people, is still the newest and the most unique idea in all the long history of man's relation to man. This is the issue of this election. Whether we believe in our capacity for self-government or whether we abandon the American Revolution and confess that a little intellectual elite can plan our lives for us better than we can plan them ourselves. This was the very thing the Founding Fathers sought to minimize. They knew that governments don't control things. A government can't control the economy without controlling people. And they know when a government sets out to do that, it must use force and coercion to achieve its purpose. The assault on freedom carries on. Private property rights so diluted that public interest is almost anything a few government planners decide it should be. In a program that takes from the needy and gives to the greedy. But FHA and the Veterans Administration tell us they have 120,000 housing units they've taken back through mortgage. You and I have a rendezvous with destiny. We'll preserve for our children this, the last best hope of man on earth, or we'll sentence them to take the last step into 1,000 years of darkness. We will keep in mind and remember that Barry Goldwater has faith in us. He has faith that you and I have the ability and the dignity and the right to make our own decisions and determine our own destiny. The trouble with our liberal friends is not that they're ignorant. It's just that they know so much that isn't so. Now, just that. A young man, 21 years of age, working at an average salary. His Social Security contribution would, in the open market, buy him an insurance policy that would guarantee $220 a month at age 65. The government promises $127. He could live it up until he's 31 and then take out a policy that would pay more than Social Security. Now, are we so lacking in business sense that we can't put this program on a sound basis? In addition, was Barry Goldwater so irresponsible when he suggested that our government give up its program of deliberate planned inflation so that when you do get your Social Security pension, $1 will buy $1's worth and not 45 cents worth? We set out to help 19 countries. We're helping 107. No government ever voluntarily reduces itself in size. So government programs once launched never disappear. Actually, a government bureau is the nearest thing to eternal life we'll ever see on this earth. These proliferating bureaus with their thousands of regulations have cost us many of our constitutional safeguards. How many of us realize that today federal agents can invade a man's property without a warrant? They can impose a fine without a formal hearing, let alone a trial by jury, and they can seize and sell his property at auction to enforce the payment of that fine. Socialism on a people? What does it mean whether you hold the deed to or the title to your business or property if the government holds the power of life and death? Well, every businessman has a nation of government, and freedom has never been so fragile, so close to slipping from our grasp as it is at this moment. They say we offer simple answers to complex problems. Well, perhaps there is a simple answer. Not an easy answer, but simple. There is no foundation like the rock of honesty and fairness. And when you begin to build your life on that rock, with the cement of the faith in God that you have, then you have a real start. This is not a man who could carelessly send other people's sons to war. And that is the issue of this campaign that makes all the other problems I've discussed academic. If you and I have the courage to tell our elected officials that we want our national policy based on what we know in our hearts is morally right, we cannot buy our security, our freedom from the threat of the bomb. I wonder who among us would like to approach the wife or mother whose husband or son has died in South Vietnam and ask them if they think this is a peace that should be maintained indefinitely. Do they mean peace, or do they mean we just want to be left in peace? There can be no real peace while one American is dying someplace in the world for the rest of us. They seem unwilling to debate these issues. They want to make you and I believe that this is a contest between two men, that were to choose just between two personalities, well, what of this man that they would destroy? And in destroying, they would destroy that which he represents, the ideas that you and I hold dear. Is he the brash and shallow and trigger-happy man they say he is? Well, I've been privileged to know him when. I knew him long before he ever dreamed of trying for high office. And I can tell you personally, I've never known a man in my life I believed so incapable of doing a dishonest or dishonorable thing.
Our campaign is all about freedom, prosperity, and peace. I can assure you that life begins at conception. Roe versus Wade must be reversed. The Constitution was written very precisely to restrain the power and force of government and to protect the liberties of each and every one of us, to provide for a strong national defense. If you look at every single problem we're facing today, it's because of the lack of respect for the rule of law and the Constitution. The answers can be found in the return to the rule of law and a strict interpretation of the Constitution. I think 9/11, quite frankly, could have been prevented if we had had a lot more respect for the Second Amendment. One of the most important choices that we should have, and we're allowing it to slip away, is the freedom of choice to educate our system, our children. What we need is a restatement so make sure that homeschoolers and private schools are never attacked. We have allowed our nation to be overtaxed and overregulated and overrun by bureaucrats. The founders would be ashamed of us for what we're putting up with. Today, how many years ago has it been since the Republican Party stood for getting rid of the Department of Education and getting rid of the Department of Energy? Where are we on that? That means getting rid of the IRS and repealing the 16th Amendment. The Constitution doesn't provide for a central national bank, doesn't even provide for a Federal Reserve System. We do not any longer have national sovereignty. We have referred too much to the United Nations, the IMF, the World Bank, and the WTO, the NAFTA and the CAFTA agreements, and they should not be part of our system. We have a chance to do something this campaign and in this election. We can continue the way we've been going, accumulate more and more big government, assume that the people won't take care of themselves, but it's coming to an end. And we're dumping on the laps of these young people who are upset about what we're giving them, and we need to change it. Now, there's something happening now. It's not going to play anymore because the country is going bankrupt. We can't run the war, and we can't run our domestic spending without borrowing $2.5 billion every single day, most of it coming from, unbelievably, the Chinese. This has to... If we do nothing, it will come to an end. If we do something, it will not be easy because change in plans and change in efforts is always difficult. I want to do this. I do not want to run your life, your family, or your religious beliefs. I do not want to run the economy, and I do not want to police the world. I don't know how, I don't have the authority, and it doesn't work. Join us in this great campaign for freedom and liberty. Thank you very much.
If you pay the bills for your family or business, you may have noticed that lately almost everything costs more, a lot more. You'd be right. Compared to the other 17 strongest currencies on the planet, the U.S. dollar has lost over 1/3 of its value in the past few years. Look at how the prices of gas and oil have risen. Since everything is made and transported with energy, a weaker dollar also means it's much more expensive to feed and house a family. A weaker dollar is the result of creating too much money to fund an expensive government burdened with wars, debts, and skyrocketing welfare. One way to slow down the money creation and control inflation is to raise interest rates. But people can't afford to pay the higher interest rates, which has led to record defaults and foreclosures, which in turn have destabilized the entire global banking system to the point where it's on the verge of collapse. But there is one man in Congress who has been warning about these problems for years.